This morning, federal marshals arrived at Mar-a-Lago, not for a search, not for an arrest, for a seizure, a court-ordered seizure to enforce unpaid legal judgments. I've prosecuted cases for 3 decades: war crimes, organized crime, corrupt officials. I've seen debt collection, enforcement, but I've never seen it at this scale, involving assets of this value for someone who spent years claiming immunity from everything. Let me be clear about something before we go further. I know some of you are thinking this sounds too dramatic, like it can't be real. I understand that skepticism, but this is real. This is standard legal process. It just happens to involve a property worth hundreds of millions of dollars and an individual who spent years refusing to comply with court orders. I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened, what the law says, and why this moment matters. Not speculation, evidence. I'll be tracking this case as it develops. Every legal step, every filing, no spin. If you want the evidence without the noise, subscribe. Now, here's what makes this different from any property seizure I've witnessed in 30 years of federal prosecution. The scale, yes, but more importantly, the pattern. This isn't the first judgment. It's not even the second. It's the third major civil judgment, with the same response every single time. Delay, deny, don't pay. That pattern tells me something, and I'm going to show you what it tells me. Let me give you the timeline because the details matter here. First judgment, $83 million. Defamation case, jury verdict, January 2024. The plaintiff's attorney sent a demand letter, payment due within 30 days. No payment came. Second judgment, $355 million plus interest. Fraud case, judge's ruling, February 2024. Again, payment demand. Again, no payment. Instead, appeals. Appeals are legal, but they don't eliminate the debt. They just delay enforcement. Third judgment, $91 million. Another defamation case, different plaintiff, same pattern, March 2024. By this point, we're looking at over $500 million in court-ordered judgments. Not allegations, not lawsuits, judgments. That means courts looked at evidence, juries heard, testimony, and legal determinations were made. Now, here's where standard legal process kicks in. You've heard the term writ of execution. Here's what it actually means in plain English. When someone refuses to pay a court judgment, the winning party can ask the court to seize assets, houses, cars, bank accounts, property. That's not politics. That's not persecution. That's standard debt collection law. It's the same process a bank uses if you default on a loan, or a business uses if you do unpay an invoice after losing in court. The law doesn't distinguish between regular citizens and wealthy individuals. The process is identical. So the attorneys for the plaintiffs filed for writs of execution. They identified assets. Mar-a-Lago came up because it's registered as a commercial property, a club, not a personal residence. That matters legally. Personal residences have certain protections. Commercial properties don't. The court granted the writs. Federal marshals were authorized to enforce them. That's what happened this morning. I want to explain how this process works because the media is undoing it clearly, and you deserve to understand your own legal system. Here's the escalation. Step 1, judgment entered. A court or jury determines someone owes money. That judgment becomes a matter of public record. Step 2, demand for payment. The winning party formally demands the money, usually gives 30 to 60 days. Step 3, if no payment comes, they file for a writ of execution. That's a court order authorizing seizure of assets to satisfy the debt. Step 4, marshals or sheriffs enforce the writ. They inventory assets, arrange for valuation, and begin the process of liquidation if necessary. If you won a lawsuit and the other party refused to pay, you'd have this exact same right. You could go to court, get a writ, and have law enforcement seize their assets to cover what they owe you. The law doesn't care about status. It cares about debt and assets. Now, I know some of you are asking, can they really seize Mar-a-Lago? Yes, here's why. It's classified as a commercial property. It operates as a private club with paying members. That means it's a business asset, not a protected personal residence. Business assets are fair game for judgment enforcement. The property will be appraised. If the debtor still doesn't pay, it can be sold at auction. The proceeds go to satisfy the judgment. Any excess goes back to the debtor. That's standard process. It happens thousands of times a year across the country. The only difference here is the property value and the person involved. But the legal authority is identical. That's the legal mechanism. Now, let me show you what this means beyond one property. Here's where I need you to see the pattern. Because this is bigger than one debt or one property. This is the third major judgment. First case, defamation, $83 million. Second case, fraud, $355 million. Third case, defamation, $91 million. 3 separate cases, 3 separate courts, 3 juries or judges looked at evidence and ruled, and 3 times the same response. Delay, deny, don't pay. That's not coincidence. That's a pattern of behavior. I've prosecuted cases for 30 years. I've seen defendants try every tactic to avoid accountability. What I haven't seen is this scale of resistance to basic civil enforcement. And here's why that matters to everyone, not just the people involved in these cases. Civil courts are how we resolve disputes without violence. Contract disagreements, business fraud, defamation, personal injury. When someone wrongs you and won't make it right, you go to court. You present evidence. A jury or judge decides. If you win, you get a judgment. But that judgment means absolutely nothing if it can't be enforced. If someone with resources can simply refuse to pay court judgments indefinitely, what does that mean for everyone else who uses civil courts? It means the system only works for people without the money to delay an appeal endlessly. Let me know in the comments. Does this pattern of ignoring judgments change how you see civil enforcement? I'm curious what you're seeing here, because here's what I see. Those juries in those cases were regular citizens. 23 people looked at evidence. They reached verdicts. If those verdicts can be ignored, if judgments can be treated as optional, then the entire civil justice system loses credibility. This is where we find out if the system works when it's tested, not just in criminal court, in civil court too. When powerful people are held to the same standards as everyone else, maybe you've never been involved in a lawsuit, maybe you never will be. But here's why this matters to you directly. Civil courts are the non-criminal accountability system. Someone breaches a contract with your small business. Someone defrauds you in a deal. Someone defames you and destroys your reputation. You can't put them in prison for that. But you can sue them, and if you win, you get a judgment. That judgment is supposed to mean something. It's supposed to give you recourse. It's supposed to make you whole. But if judgment enforcement becomes optional for the wealthy and well-connected, then that entire system collapses for regular people. If your small business wins a judgment against a larger company that refuses to pay, you need the Marshal system to work. You need writs of execution to have teeth. You need courts to back up their own orders. If you're defrauded and you win in court, you need asset seizure to mean something. Otherwise, justice is just a word on paper with no real-world consequence. When enforcement becomes optional for people with resources to delay and appeal endlessly, the system fails for everyone else. That's what's at stake here, not just one property or one individual. The principle that court judgments matter, that civil accountability exists, that the system works equally whether you're rich or poor, powerful or ordinary. That's what's being tested right now. So that's what's at stake for you. Now, let me tell you what happens next and what to watch for. Here's what happens next. The marshals will conduct a full property valuation. They'll bring in appraisers, assess the market value of Mar-a-Lago, and file that valuation with the court. The debtor has options at that point. Option 1, pay the judgment, write a check, transfer funds, satisfy the debt, enforcement stops immediately. Option 2, negotiate a settlement, maybe pay a portion now, work out a payment plan for the rest. That happens in civil cases all the time. Option 3, continue appealing while the property sits in legal limbo. But here's the thing about that option. Appeals take time, but they don't stop enforcement indefinitely. Courts can allow seizure to proceed even while appeals are pending, especially when there's a pattern of delay. If no resolution comes, the property goes to auction. That's months away, not days, but it's the legal endpoint if the debt remains unpaid. The proceeds satisfy the judgment. Any excess returns to the debtor. That's standard process. No one is above the law. Not in criminal court, not in civil court, not anyone. But that only stays true if citizens hold the system accountable. The system works when people pay attention. If you want to watch this process unfold, step by step, evidence by evidence, subscribe and let me know in the comments. Do you think this gets resolved before it reaches auction? I read everyone. The law is clear. The process is underway.